everybody. And Jen's going to hang out. And Dennis and Richard, I'm so happy to see you both. Dennis, I mean, I just will keep remembering our first chat and that, Courteney and Kevin brought you to us. Everyone's, heard all this before. This is a really important conversation and a topic that, goes a little bit outside of motion picture and television, but not, because it's something all very near and dear to our hearts. And, Conference of the Parties, I used to work for Conservation International, and COP 26, which, I can't believe since 1995, since its inception, the only time it didn't meet was 2020 because of the pandemic. And the work that you all are doing to make it so accessible, multi-generational, and we're dying to hear about Glasgow and what happened and what didn't happen and what did we expect and what we can do. So I just want to do, I know everyone on this listening is very educated and knows more than I do, but can one of you just explain maybe a little bit about what Conference of the Parties is, what the goal is supposed to be for since 95, and so we know a little bit of background on what we're about to chat about.
Yeah, it refers to the Conference of the Parties. The international community got together in the late 90s to start to deal with climate change, and over the years has grown in terms of numbers of countries. 5 years ago in Paris, reached an agreement by 196 countries, I think it is. That's almost all of us. And that was quite an achievement to get, even just to get the people to agree on anything. And the goal is to address the climate crisis. We are in a climate crisis, and that's recognized. If you like, I've got some slides I can show and kind of go right into it if you want.
Let's do it. Let's dive right into it.
Okay.
Richard, it's that one unifying thing that, not everyone agrees on, but I think we can all agree on some base facts here. So, I mean, this is a human thing. This is not a party thing.
Leading up to the Conference of the Parties, there was much more recognition of the seriousness and the urgency of the issue by everybody. And by everybody, I mean all the delegates that went there, and then there were thousands and thousands of other people that came around that were not inside the building, that also met and that also tried to express the concern from children, indigenous people. Everybody is very concerned. So this is no longer a debate. It's not a debate. It's a debate about maybe what to do or how fast to do it, but there's no debate that there is an urgent issue. All the leaders of the world agree. And then there's a question of, well, what are we going to do about it? Well, I identify 8 areas, so I'll just talk quickly about 8 different areas that were addressed in this recent meeting in Glasgow. First, this issue of urgency. There was, for, I would say, the first time, much more urgency about doing things quicker. Used to be, okay, we'd set a goal for 2030 or 2050. Now the discussion is, what are we going to do for next year? And that this is a critical decade. This decade between now and 2030, this is the time when we have to act if we're going to avoid really serious problems in the Earth's climate. So some of the agreements, there's hundreds of pages. Some of them call for action by the end of 2022, for example, and several of them by 2030. And there's a whole mechanism where all the countries are urged to tighten their goals. So most of the countries in green and in blue have tightened their goals. Some, noted in orange here in this slide, are not. Russia, Brazil, Australia. So that's a problem. But most countries...
I mean, Richard, can we stop on that for a second? I'm really curious to know why. What's holding, I know that's a huge conversation. I don't want to tangent, but why?
No, I'll get to it, but the short answer for Russia is they've got oil. They don't want to They don't want to have any restrictions on their pumping their oil. Australia has coal. They don't want any, and Brazil has forests. They don't want any restrictions on knocking down their forests. And in each of those cases, there is a dictator in charge, or let's say authoritarian regimes in charge that don't want their power undermined.
But that, I think that's the key, though, Richard, is what you're saying is there's maybe a singular or a group around singular, because you can't just say Brazil doesn't want it to, Russia doesn't. There's many people in Brazil who do want to protect. Many people in Russia. It's just maybe in the wrong hands right now.
The people in power would lose power if they had to agree to some of these things, and we see that, of course, in this country. It's not.
Sure.
Yeah. So that's the answer to that, and that's why we pulled out last time.
Right.
Okay, but the good news is almost all countries, 88% of all emissions, are covered by countries that have decided to have a net zero emission goal. They've established that. It's some of them are in the future, 2070, which is too far, but at least they've got the goals. And we can see that to the great extent, these goals are being tightened, not loosened over time. And that's a good thing. But there's a huge gap. This chart shows up at the top essentially where we are, 2030 where we need to get to, which is basically cutting it 50%. If we're going to keep within this 1.5 degree goal.
Richard, all those goals you showed were like tens of years beyond 2030. Yes. Make us feel better, buddy.
Well, okay. I would like to. The way you can feel better, take some action. And that's what Dennis and I are all doing. And that's the real punchline. And we've got a bunch of stuff all of you can do. All of you. And it all helps. And you can see in this portion of the slide that what was achieved in this red circle in the top was a very small part, 15% only, of where we need to go. So there is a lot of work for us to do. There was achievement, but more needs to be done. What needs to be done is all countries need to agree to cut emissions by 50% by 2030. And all countries need to adopt a goal of net zero by 2050. We're going in that direction, but we're not there yet. That's the first challenge. Second challenge, and the kind of exciting thing, finally addressing what is called short-term pollutants. CO2 lasts for a long time. There are other pollutants, short time, but they have a bigger effect. And so that means if you cut them back now, they'll have a short-term benefit really quickly, like methane. And so there's a lot of focus on methane reduction now. Methane's leaks from gas, like the Aliso Canyon gas storage, it's not too far from the home. That needs to be addressed. That's leaking. That leaked terribly. It was one of the worst pollutants ever. Pipelines leak, coal mines leak. 105 countries agreed at the COP they would reduce methane, at least by 30% by 2030. Some countries didn't participate. China, Russia, Australia, for the same reasons we talked about. India, they've got a lot of coal. Same, they don't want to get involved. And we also need to address not just methane, but all the refrigerants that are still in our refrigerators, or some refrigerators. That's a big problem. There are other problems similar to that. We need to take more action there. Go in the right direction. More needs to be done. Third, everybody talks about deforestation. Nobody does anything about it. There have been a number of agreements, no action, for the same reasons. The leader in Brazil doesn't want to do anything. Congo is kind of a mess, so nobody's doing anything there. But in this case, 100 leaders agreed to end deforestation again by 2030. And also to remove deforestation from the food trade. So in other words, if you're buying palm oil because palm is grown where an area is being deforested, these countries have agreed we're not going to participate in that trade. And that's something, again, you can do, start to take a look at, everybody can take a look at the products they buy and where they buy it from. And
Richard, do you know of, and maybe we can, offline and send this around to some of our people, are there, I know there are, but I'm just asking you, websites and places for people
Yes.
to buy, the marketplaces that
Yes.
that go outside of these things, so to make it easy for people, as opposed to saying, look at where your food, like take away some of the research steps, basically, and make it
yes, no, right. Well, if I may put a plug in for Elders Climate Action, that's what we do.
Please. That's why we're here. Absolutely.
Exactly. So if you want more information, please give us a call. That's exactly what we do. That's exactly what our members want to do. So we're the facilitators. Okay.
We're in the gift giving season. We're hearing about supply shortages, like, helping small businesses, helping diverse businesses.
Yes.
So
Yes.
if we can extend that to, I know we just had on Phil Gittleman. I want to talk about nutrition.
Yes.
And I just went vegetarian. And a lot of this is not because, like, I love meat, guys, but I'm really, there's a lot of environmental impact on what we put into our body and what we purchase and how it affects everyone. And it sounds silly.
Yes.
But it's really not.
Not silly at all.
It fits directly to this. If you're cutting down forests to graze cattle,
right,
you can contribute to the solution by taking action. Yes.
Yeah.
I was going to say bamboo. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Fast growing, green,
Very, yeah.
steel, whatever. Yes.
Replenish it very, very rapidly. So look for, like, for me, that's the new everything.
Yeah.
Bamboo products, and they are so soft. I love
bamboo sheets.
napkins.
Oh, they are amazing.
Oh, bamboo sheets are amazing. Okay, I'll stop.
That sounds like
But
a
we
lovely
digress.
holiday present, by the way. Bamboo sheets
That is fantastic.
and maybe a song. Go ahead.
That's, well, so again, everybody needs to divest from companies that support forestation. And that's another thing that we're getting into in 2022, particularly. Where do you invest?
Yeah.
Where can you invest that helps businesses that are doing the right thing and get away from companies that aren't? And we can help again in that. And of course, there needs to be some enforcement here. That hasn't been happening. We need to put pressure on companies or countries that are doing the wrong thing. Okay. Another achievement had to do with vehicles. For the first time, several countries got together and declared they were going to only allow zero-emission vehicles being produced after a certain date. Ford and GM agreed, and yesterday, for the first time, Toyota agreed. It was going to produce all-electric vehicles. So
That's big.
That is big.
There needs to be more and more pressure. You can see that it's a kind of a tipping point. It's a wave. If now the companies that are behind want to get on board with this shift, and it's super important because it contributes, a third or more of all greenhouse gas emissions around the world and in this country.
I mean, Richard, shaming for good, right? People do shaming for bad. Why don't we shame for good? I'm all about it.
Yeah.
We should do that. Call people out.
I didn't even know about the Toyota thing. That is really a big deal because Toyota
Huge.
for years was kind of ahead of the game with the hybrids, and they didn't. But that was their business model, hybrids, and they were not going the all electric route. That is a big deal.
It is, and I just have to emphasize, every year that we can push back earlier that requirement for zero emissions, 2035 to 2030 or even earlier, makes a huge difference in the long run because there are so many cars and the cars last for so many years, 13, 15, 20, 25 years. So we can get that zero emission car in the fleet now, then that gets rid of the problem earlier. Okay. U.S. and China came to an agreement for the first time. They're the two biggest polluters. And there wasn't a lot that was achieved, but there at least was an agreement to discuss further and to accelerate their actions.
These people have not been agreeing on a whole lot lately, so that's a
We
big
have
deal.
not. We have
No,
not.
that's
we
a
have not.
win.
But
Yeah.
but John Kerry and the group got together with his counterparts in China and did come up with some agreements, and there will be more in 2022 and the rest of this decade. And that pressure needs to be put on all sides, of course, particularly on the Chinese side, but on our side. And one of the biggest issues has to do with coal. It's the biggest polluter in the world. Over 40 countries have agreed not to issue any new permits for new coal plants. Great. Of course, we need everybody to do that. The U.S. is not issuing any because it's way cost not competitive. But the U.S. did not agree to that agreement that the other countries did. We need to pressure the U.S. to agree no more coal plants. We need also China to agree to a methane goal and to deploy renewable energy and to phase out coal and to agree with the U.S. on a number of other goals. If we can get the U.S. and China to agree on an accelerator program, that's it. We're done. The rest of the world will go, okay, well, if you guys are on it, then I guess we better, because China makes most of the goods in the world, U.S. buys most of the goods in the world, and everybody else is going to follow. So pressure on that agreement is a really good method too.
It's time for the leaders to really step up and make a change.
Yes, it is. It is. And you, Courtney, you mentioned shaming and naming. A lot of that's the only
I did.
that's the only enforcement mechanism of this agreement, of all these agreements I talk about. There's no cop, there's no external cop. It's us. And the only thing we can do is say, well, you didn't do what you said you were going to do. So there's a lot of what was achieved has to do with, you could say, documentation, record keeping, and transparency of methods of calculation. We found out that Malaysia believes their trees capture more carbon, 4 times more carbon than the trees next door in Indonesia. Well, no, sorry, that's not the case. So we have to, so the parties agreed there will be one procedure for making these calculations. They will be reviewed, technically approved, and so that way we can get better accuracy, because we don't want greenwashing, we want green action, right? So that's a good thing, the Paris rule book. 7th, and then one more, finance. Financing has been delayed. Financing of developing countries has been delayed since Paris. There was 100 billion promised, almost none was given. Countries did agree now start to pay for developing countries to deal with the problem and to make the transition, including 8.5 billion for South Africa. That was a specific arrangement between the European and U.S. and South Africa to get them going. So there's movement. There needs to be more. There needs to be more specific dollars set aside, and there has to be agreement on what's called loss and damage. Some countries didn't contribute to this. The island countries, they don't have coal plants, but they're getting wiped out first. So they didn't contribute, but they're getting hurt worse. So there really should be some kind of agreement. The U.S., of course, is not going to agree to that, but at least there was some discussion. And finally, for the first time, a discussion on a related topic, what's called adaptation, which means, okay, we got to do something. There's fires, there's floods. We've got all these problems from this climate change. We need to start figuring out what we're going to do, how we're going to approach it. And for the first time, this bunch of people agreed, okay, let's start thinking about it. Let's start setting some goals. They didn't set any goals during this COP. They need to. The next one, which areas are we going to protect? How are they going to protect? How are we going to provide the funding? but at least they started talking about it. And that mimics what's happening in California and elsewhere around the world. We are now going, okay, yeah, we're going to try as much as we can to reduce our emissions, but we know we've got super heating events, super flooding events, super tornado events, super hurricane events. We got to do something and put that into our planning. And more of that is happening. So that's the scenario of the COP. We can now talk about what we can do, unless you have any other questions.
I have a couple of questions about India, actually.
Okay.
Because, I mean, the picture that you showed of people in the street with the flooding made me recall there was a report on BBC World News about some technology that India was putting in place to try and clear the parts per million in their air, because the pollution in India has gotten to a point where it's very, very hazardous. So there was, I think there are 2 of these structures that are built, and it's supposed to be like an air cleaner. But you have the PR around it, the wonderful idea of it, and then the practical nature. When the reporter went there to look into it, it wasn't activated. There's this giant bridge structure in the middle of this town, not turned on, not doing any kind of cleaning of the air. And when the people saw that there was a reporter and a camera there, they turned it on, and measuring the pollution, the parts per million of pollution, 5 feet away from the structure versus, I think it was 1.5 feet from the structure, there was a difference, but it was negligible. And it was only like your air quality was only going to be improved if you were standing underneath or beside this structure. That was it.
Right. Yeah.
So I know the idea of implementing technology like this to help us reverse the damage that has been done is a beautiful idea. Are there things that are closer to actually being practical in their implementation than what they have done in India?
In general, no. In general, no. Is it Einstein who said, the way to get out of the problem is not to use the same thinking that got you into the problem? And that, why don't we just build a huge fan? Because we have these huge refineries. Let's just build the bigger. No.
Yeah, what do you use to power the fan?
Exactly. So there's a fabulous invention that takes carbon dioxide out of the air called a tree. It's really pretty cool.
Again, I go back to bamboo. It grows so quickly.
But seriously, a lot of serious people have given this question, and it's called carbon capture technologies.
Right.
You'll find the techies and the oil industry all in favor, because that lets them keep doing it. Okay. But it's way costly, not cost effective, perpetuates the problem, doesn't work if it's not turned on, takes too much energy itself, does not address the problem. So there are lots of other solutions that are very cost effective, Energy efficiency is super effective. Solar is getting cheaper and cheaper. Batteries are getting cheaper and cheaper. So there's a lot better, simpler, direct ways tomorrow that we could all get to where we need to go.
So, Richard, there are simpler, cost-effective ways. What worries me is that we are in a world that is driven by money for the most part.
Yes.
And to shift over from industries that employ so many people, and that's where their skills are, and that's where their livelihood, to then say, yes, these changes are possible? How do we build that bridge of possibility and not leave people behind? And are we investing enough to get there? And do we have enough time? I feel that like it's like Marissa Tomei and My Cousin Vinny, like my biological clock is ticking like this. Yeah. Like our global clock, right?
Yes.
So
yes. Right. Lots of good questions. Yes, it can be done. Yes, we need more money. The Build Back Better is exactly what's needed. It had the benefit of input from a lot of scientists, a lot of thinking, a lot of positive examples, and so forth.
Yeah,
that is right on as far as what needs to be done. We have a clear plan. We have good deadlines. We have the technology. People are lined up. It's not going to be easy. It's not going to be super quick.
Yeah.
It's not going to be effortless. Everybody has to chip in. Everybody, all the utilities,
everyone has to play their part. It's so funny because truly, like the 100th anniversary campaign, I hate to take it to like fundraising, but like our planet depends on us moving forward, just as MPTF depends on support to be in like our next century. It's very similar. What I love about what you guys are talking about is there's big problems to solve, and the world has to come together. However, there are easy solutions, and it's not without our outside of our grasp. So maybe we're not there yet, but just some of those practical things that in the aggregate, they do make a big difference, and they should make you feel good about it.
Yeah, and that if I can just jump in here,
please,
Courtney, that's a really big. You've just alluded to it. Richard kind of mentioned it a bit earlier. It is. This is an overwhelming human global problem.
Yeah.
No one's solving it on their own. There's no solution that's going to, pop up tomorrow. And it's very easy. It's great to hear all this major government organizations getting together and working on it. As Richard said, they're talking about it now. At least that's some movement. It's not as fast as we want it, but it's very easy to get overwhelmed. And what can I do? And oh my God, we're lost. Yes, our biological clocks are ticking, but you know what? They are ticking. So let's get up and do the best we can. And one of the things doing the best we can and doing whatever you can, even on a very small level, is it saves you from that feeling of I can't do anything. It's that depression essentially. It makes you feel like you're doing something. And you are doing something and being part of. And, one of the things I want to say about ECA is Richard mentioned a few different facets of it, but it essentially is like a clearinghouse almost of different opportunities in various organizations. And when we talk about what can you as an individual do? Well, you can join a group. You can join an advocacy group like ECA, although ECA is not the only one. There's a number of others, 350.org, Third Act, Sunrise Movement for younger people, Surf Riders, which is about cleaning up beaches more than anything. But all of these are really great programs, and you multiply your efficacy by being part of a group. And I think a lot of these groups do this, but what ECA does is it works with these other groups and coordinates things so that, if you're interested in a particular area, say plastic cleanup on the beach with Surf Rider, ECA is a way to get to those people. I'm not saying you have to go through ECA, but it becomes a nice clearinghouse. But join a group. And part of what some of those groups do, ECA in particular, is we focus a lot on contacting our legislators and contacting businesses and making our voices heard. I think I know we had it the last time I was here, the conversation about, when you're operating on a national level, Your voice is, one of 200 million people, 300 million people are out there. But when you start getting into the state level, it's much smaller. When you start getting into your local community, your voice makes a difference. You can get your state senator and council people, you can get to their offices, and that's something that I found particularly rewarding, and feeling that I'm getting something done. Richard mentioned, I'll just run through a few things here. Richard mentioned the methane situation. Methane is by far a more deadly, so to speak, greenhouse gas than carbon dioxide. The good news is it doesn't last forever, but it has a much greater effect when it's first, and it gets out through leakages and things like that. And so we have to pressure the gas companies and the oil companies to take steps to try and not use it, and to take steps to use it when needed in the right way. In addition to contacting the governor and your state legislator, there's also agencies in the California government that monitor. Particularly, there's an agency that monitors utilities that utilize methane, the CPUC, and we can address letters and emails, et cetera, to them, because they need to hear what the people what the people want, what the people are upset about. And I know the government doesn't seem to work very well sometimes, but they do respond to what it is the voter is trying, what's on their mind. Richard mentioned deforestation, avoiding losing sustainable products. It seems that Kim, who will give a chance to speak in a minute, what she's doing is a lot about that. The zero emission vehicles. I'm over the moon about the Toyota announcement. The Build Back Better bill has a lot of support for electric vehicles, even in the infrastructure bill that's already been passed. I spent a good part of my afternoon yesterday making calls to West Virginia, not to make it political, but to say, can you talk to your senator about supporting the Build Back Better bill, at least making sure the environmental concerns are in there. Coal's a terrible thing. Getting on the phone with legislators about reducing coal use. And then Richard mentioned another thing that we're trying to get involved in, people already are involved in, and that is it goes by ESG investing, which is environmental, social, and governance. Finding investment opportunities that support the environment and support social justice, and and maybe moving out of banks that don't. And again, if you think politicians respond to hearing what the voters want, boy, the financial institutions respond to people pulling their money out because there's a lot of, there's a lot of other places you can put it, and there's a lot of, so take a look. But even the little things, looking at your own greenhouse gas profile and emissions and what you do, and auditing that down, and just keeping up the pressure on the legislators, the financial institutions, and the polluters to that we're not going to stand for this. And I know the progress is slow, but even COP26 shows that we're making it. And one other thing I wanted to bring up, another interesting thing we had in our last meeting with the ECA, we kind of combined efforts with the Northern California branch of the ECA, and a new member got on the phone from the Santa Cruz area, and they are developing a video game platform that is all about teaching about the environment, with the idea that kids will respond more, might be more open to hearing messaging coming through the kind of platform that they pay attention to. And it's just great. And it's, you kind of get in here and think, we're not making much progress, but there is.
Dennis, though, I got to stop you, because not to stop talking, continue all this, but
put myself on mute, right?
No, please don't. Please do not. No, you need to keep on talking. I'm stopping you on education.
Yes.
And it's been something that it's palatable and it's realistic. And of course, to write in, and all these things you all say are fantastic, but there are ways that are practical in the aggregate to be an advocate and to use your voice, even if it's talking to people about what you believe in, your sisters, brothers, friends, kids, grandkids. We all have the responsibility to pay it forward in some way. I get asked all the time, if I'm passionate about something, I always get asked, do you work for that company? I literally work for one company. It's MPTF. Everyone knows that. But I think, Dennis, what you and Richard are hitting on so deeply, and so many others are, just make your life about it. Make your purchases conscious. Be present in what you're doing. Look what you're buying. Look where you're buying it from, what your conversation is, how you teach your kids and your grandkids. And these are the things that if we all just start kind of changing our mindset, eventually the conversation changes. And then, it's like the oceans. There's a small wave and there's a tsunami. Eventually it will be a tsunami. We will get there.
It starts with one step. One little step makes a difference.
It really does. I feel like our residents, our community, like if anyone gets it, it's the creative community. They know the magic of one little project that was, let's say, like an indie film that no one ever thought would reach.
Right.
And then all of a sudden it's reached the globe.
One last thing, because I know Kim is here, and
yeah.
But one last thing I want to say is, Richard and I were talking also, for motion picture members or campus members, residents, you probably have skills that could really, or knowledge, skills, all of it, experience that can really contribute to what not only we're trying to do, but what this whole movement is trying to do. And when I mentioned that video game, I don't know the first thing about video games and the electronics of it and the cinematography of it, but there's probably people listening here who do. And if you want to get involved, please call us.
Fantastic. I did welcome Kim back over because Courteney, that was the perfect segue. Kim works for a company that's very cognizant of sustainability and their environmental impact. And not only just in terms of like packaging, in their mission, they are doing what Elder Climate Action is also all about, which is going to Washington, verbalizing and the support that they have for changing, like making really impactful change. So, Kim, thank you for joining us.
Sure. Well, I'm learning every day working for Beauty Counter what they're doing. So thank you for asking me to look at this even deeper, what we're doing. And
Kim, we're all big fans of Beauty Counter. So thank you, by the way. Oh, absolutely. I think that Jen, I feel like you got glammed up for an event there, and maybe that's when maybe I first was introduced, or maybe not. I don't know, but I'm a fan. I'm a fan of all things beauty anyways. I need a lot of help.
Yeah. Well, I don't think most people know what they're putting on their skin. And I just moved back here from Florida. Californians are a little more up on it. And in Florida, everybody's clueless. And it's not just that, we're taking the bad ingredients out. It's just we're starting to, package in glass and things like that people don't understand. I have customers that say, well, that's so heavy to mail to me, the glass, not really understanding.
Kim, I just bought a shampoo solid bar to get rid of plastic. I didn't even know, I didn't even understand how you would soap up your hair, but it's like, it's in paper. You're not in plastic anymore. And it's small. It probably didn't do anything, but it would if we all did. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, just things that it's pretty much known what we're doing. But we have goals too. It says, I'm reading some more things. Our goal is to be carbon neutral by 2030. This year, we achieved zero net emissions at our headquarters in Santa Monica and our retail locations. And we reduced associate commute by 85%, reduced business air travel by 68%. The other thing, like I said, that we're working on is it also is responsible ingredient sourcing. I mean, we've taken certain ingredients and gone all the way back the supply chain to see who is mining this, who is getting it, are people being abused? So we're really watching very carefully where each ingredient is coming from and getting the whole story. And we're supporting women in lots of countries, India especially, that can help, source the ingredients that we want. We've also started, I know you use Beauty Counter, I don't know if you've used the deodorant. We have two products right now that are refillable. And I was just reading that
Well, and deodorant is a big thing, Kim. Keep talking about that because the way it blocks lymph nodes and the consistent, I mean
deodorant. I mean, I didn't know this, but basically your lymph nodes are pretty close to where you put deodorant. So I mean, cancer,
sure is
going right in your skin, and
right.
26 seconds, I think, approximately to get in your skin. So it took us a while to get a clean deodorant. And besides clean, the packaging now is refillable. So you use part of the deodorant and then you throw away and then you can refill it. And it says right here that is saving greenhouse gas emissions by an estimated 47%, reducing water use, fossil fuel use, and So, and we just did that with something called a cheeky blush, and that's going to be refillable. So we're starting to do that. We're starting to do glass, but I mean, our goals, I was just reading the mission report. I mean, it does sound like it's a long way off 2030, but we started doing a lot of these. But like, for instance, it says that this year we avoided 235,000 plastic tubes. Is that how many? By just starting the glass. We have 100% of our mica partners audited. Those are the people that do the sparkly stuff that goes in your makeup. We've started setting off some of the credits. I'm learning more about this. Our offset credits in 2020, we chose to support clean drinking water in India. And we are fighting in Congress to change laws. We've changed 3 laws this year on ingredients, dangerous ingredients going in your skin. That's, and then I was just, kind of reading that people don't understand. It says a little intel on packaging in the beauty industry because things are so small, it's broken. It says many makeup packaging items are not recycled because their size and mixed material composition makes them difficult to recycle. We also have on the bottom of our packages telling people how to recycle them. So you can just read on the bottom what you should do. And it's a work in progress. I mean, every year we're doing more.
Kim, have you always been interested in this subject? Did Beauty Counter get you there? Okay.
No, Beauty Counter. No, I was pretty ignorant about all of it. Actually, I am one of the few people like from the East Coast, like not as aware, and love that about California. So when I joined Beauty Counter, part of what kept me there was learning every day something new. Like I started changing my life slowly. I've always been aware that we were putting, when you eat bad things, it's bad. I don't know if I was aware what you were putting on your body was as important, but I've kind of always known that it was a bad industry.
But that's a beautiful business model because something you just got into and then the company was educating you and then you've taken it forward. I mean, it just shows that if we all play our part. I know that I've been talking more about this from talking to Dennis, from being at, CI, the more voices you can put in your head, it's like Elders for Climate. I want the voices of the elders in my head. And I don't mean it like age-wise. It's just the voices of the wise in my head so that I can pay it forward and be a better human. I think that's what Richard and Dennis are doing brilliantly and sharing with us.
Is there also any kind of opportunity for a connection between elder climate change? Were you guys aware of companies like this? Is there like a reference document for companies that take this kind of action very seriously?
Personally, I was not aware.
Yeah, I can find out. I don't know.
Great, because I think people that are very cognizant of the impact that their dollars are making.
Yes.
You know, that it's a good opportunity for elder climate action to be able to say, hey, here's a short list, do what you want with it, but these are companies that we have vetted and they are making positive change. They are putting their money where their mouth is. And it's reducing plastics, getting the carbon emissions lowered, and pairing with COP26, which is what we were talking about initially, and having those goals match up with 2030.
Right, right, yeah. Well, is it being a B corporation part of, I mean, that's what we are, and we tend to support other B Corps, benefit corporations. So I don't know if those all go by the same kind of rules or whatever. I'm not sure.
Kim, I invite you to contact us, send us your information, and we'll spread the word.
Yeah, that would be great.
Richard just put that in the chat. And, this is something that I hope, on our website, we put, these are just great resources. Dennis and Richard have been very great about this is not about soliciting members per se. Join at your own. This is just about all being better together. And coming from this beautiful world of creativity in this entertainment industry that we all love so much. So let's all join hands. This is really, really lovely.
Kim, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. So in the last few minutes that we have, you had a great slide for what potentially people who are living on the campus could be able to volunteer their services, like the ways they could volunteer their services. And I know with the potential that we're 3/4 of the way through the pandemic and not actually complete with it, right? Fingers crossed. There are a lot of people with time on their hands who may find this a great way to make positive change in the world and fill up some of the hours in the day.
Yeah, I think, to your point, Jen, it's a win-win because, it is about, hey, for instance, I have time on my hands and, hey, how am I going to spend that? How am I going to spend that in a way that makes me feel good and that is productive? And, I love sitting around watching movies and there's nothing wrong with that. But, there's other things too, and getting up and, whatever it is, making some phone calls, or talking, you're mentioning, we all were bringing up, Courteney, the youth, and getting out to the youth and talking to them about, this is going to be their world. It's hot now. It's going to get hotter if we don't watch it, and they're taking it. So I just love getting in front of some kids and trying to communicate with them.
Well, I invite you to come to my kids' schools. I'll push all of that forward.
We'll be happy
I'll take you up on that. Yeah.
The Brentwood School, I'll put them out there. We'll put it. We got you. You will come.
Yeah.
We'll make it happen. It'd be great.
Because the other thing you find when you do talk to them, I mean, depends on the age of them, obviously, and what they're, what stage they're in, but they get it. They get it.
They do get it, Dennis. And you know what they get? They get the tangible aspects of how to help. My daughter really gets, she loves the oceans. She loves the joy that it brings her. She knows that. She also knows the pain in her heart when she sees people who are homeless on the streets. They get causes. They understand it. And if we can plant these seeds now of how they can help and what they can do, we deliver food all the time, make lunches. When we're at the ocean, we're not part of an organized group, but we pick up trash. It's not much, but it's just creating good habits.
Mm-hmm. I was down there doing some volunteer work where I was picking up some trash, and I went to the parking lot and I'm picking up, just so many cigarette butts. And, you're like, how I'm never going to make a difference. But you know what? That one butt would have ended up in the ocean, would have ended up, so even one makes a difference.
Sure. if you pick up, if you pick up a bag of trash, that's something
not a bag of
tangible.
trash
That's one bag of trash that would have been somewhere else.
Yep.
Now where it goes, that's another deeper conversation, but baby
Yeah.
steps.
Yeah, I just put in the just as a little another advertisement. I just put in the chat our website. As you
Great.
said, we're not here soliciting that members sign up, fees, whatever.
There are no fees.
There's no fees, and you're more than welcome to come and take what you want, so to speak. If you wanted to find out ways to get to another organization, you can do that through us. If you wanted to find out ways to actually again, a year ago, I was like, I don't even know how the legislature works, never mind calling them.
And we can really use the help of everybody who's listening today. Anybody who's listening, we've got
Great.
something that you could enjoy doing for sure, no doubt.
And similar to picking up one cigarette butt from the ocean, one call to your representative, 3 calls to the various people that represent you and your interests. That makes an impact.
Even an email. It's really easy to create a template and to fire it off to 1 million people and change the name, because they do look at inboxes. They do. My husband after UCLA was an advance for the governor. There are people monitoring the activity. And if they see a trend in a way, they will, there's just, Jen, you're right, Dennis, Richard, right? I don't want to say one, and now I keep going back to one but. So it's not just one but makes a difference. That's a weird slogan. But maybe it does, maybe it does. One action though.
Yes. Thank you guys. I cannot believe that once again, we ran through an hour like it was nothing. Great information about COP26 and really simple ways for you to get involved if you're interested. I can share that information with you as well. Thank you. Thank you guys.
Yeah,
and when are you coming back? When do we see you again in 2022?
February 14th.
February 14th.
It's Valentine's Day. Oh my God.
It is.
We're definitely,
Just say when.
give us a couple of months to take more actions and get more stuff together, and we'd gladly come back, right, Richard?
Yeah, and we'd like to set up a group at the home.
Oh, that's nice.
Courteney.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Let's do it. Let's get a bunch of people who want to participate, and we'll get together.
Yeah.
All right.
One last thing I put in the chat, there is an app you can get for your phone called Climate Action Now. It provides you daily little activities, texts, emails, calls, things you can do to make a difference, really make a difference.
Great.
Everybody
Thank
have
you,
a great
guys.
holiday.
Thank you.
Thank you. You too.